The Podcasting Dead is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Make sure to subscribe for more podcasts. And while you're at it, drop us a like. If you want to help support the channel and have access to extra content, secret contests, and more, make sure to search for us on Patreon. Patreon.com/thepodcastingdead.
All right, so what is today? Wednesday. Happy Weird Wednesday. We're going to get weird and talk about the Dogman, which we've been wanting to kind of look into for a long while, but honestly, it's not as easy to find info on the Dogman as one would think. But we do have a little bit, and this is more of a discussion than it is a presentation. So, I mean, if you're looking for a video to tell you everything about it and the history, that's probably not going to be us. We're going to be having a discussion about the Dogman, maybe some differences between the Dogman and the werewolf. Things like that. But before we get into it, I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead. And we talk about everything from The Walking Dead to weird and supernatural things to conspiracies to debauchery. Well, really more just JP's debauchery. But also with a lot of good shows coming out, we'll be covering more stuff. So consider giving our channel a subscribe. Maybe hit that bell notification. And if nothing else, drop us a like. And we'll talk about our Patreon at the end of the podcast where you can get some behind-the-scenes content. But in the meantime, JP, the Dogman. What do you know about the Dogman? You were very fascinated with this a while back. I remember you had said you really wanted to talk about the Dogman. Have you heard anything about him?
No, I know we watched that one video where he busted up in some dude's barn.
No, that was fake, and you know it.
It was just some massive creature. He summoned like a mist, and it was crazy.
Well, according to an entrance on Quora.com, dogmen typically are described as 7 to 9 feet tall with their on their hind feet while standing up, covered in hair and resembling a large wolf that walks standing up like a man. It's usually reported that they have hands that are similar to ours, but shorter, broader fingers. Their hind legs are shaped like a dog's, and their feet leave tracks that are sometimes described as being similar to a dog's, only larger and more triangular in shape. A lot of people put this with Bigfoot. I mean, there actually are a lot more people that believe that the Dogman is real than not. And it's not actually a werewolf. We're going to talk about some differences between the werewolf coming up here in just a bit. But JP, what do you think, man? You think maybe Bigfoot and the Dogmen are together?
Well, how far back does this mythology go? Does it go back to like the Native American?
I don't know. That might be why at the beginning of the video, why I said we're not going to be doing a presentation as far as knowing when it started and all of that. We're just talking about sightings. I'm sure they've been going on for a while, but this is kind of in the realm, I feel, of like the skinwalker and the Wendigo. It's been commonly seen a lot here recently. I'm seeing more and more about it. However, they say dogmen are not werewolves. Because they say, guy says that's because werewolves don't exist, but dogmen do. And I'm thinking what they're saying is they're not actually like people that turn into wolves. I think that they are just straight up wolf people hybrids.
They're like a cryptid. It's just, they're their own entity. It's not something you get infected with and you turn into this beast.
Right, exactly. That's exactly a good way to put it. That's exactly what people are saying about them, that they are just kind of their own thing. And I don't know, you had what you thought was an encounter with a skinwalker, but I think someone might have mentioned that it could have been a dogman. So, and if we've said wolfman, excuse me, it's dogman dogmen is what people call it. It's just so easy to say wolfman, werewolf, dogman.
Werewolf Jack.
Right. But so tell us once again, for those that aren't subscribed to the Patreon, you explained when you went camping, you had a tiny, or your friend, maybe it wasn't you, your friend had a tiny little interesting experience, nothing crazy, but what was that again?
Yeah, well, I was knocked out cold. You know, I go camping, man. I go hard. You know, I consume enough intoxicants to make sure I sleep soundly through the night. My friend, not so much. He heard unnatural noises. I mean, growling, but like I said, not, you know, my friend's well versed, much like yourself, in the outdoors. He knows what a coyote sounds like. He knows what a bear is going to sound like, what a mountain goat is going to sound like. But this was something he couldn't put his finger on. It was scattering around our deer camp. And yeah, he said there was a couple times he found himself holding the 9mm, you know, just like all right, this tent ain't much between me and whatever this is, but
and I mean, with all his,
he's
got a lot of combat experience. So I mean, this guy probably doesn't spook easily, and you said it kind of had him a little spooked. I'm not gonna say it had him terrified, but he definitely felt that it was bizarre enough to maybe grab a gun.
Exactly, because I mean, it was just something he couldn't identify, and that it's not something that happens to the someone who's an avid outdoorsman.
Right.
Most stuff you can identify. Oh, hey, that's just a dog out there, or whatever, or coyote, or whatever.
You have a lot of times where you're outside, maybe having a barbecue, or it's at night, and you're sitting out on the porch having a few drinks, and you'll hear like a bobcat or a fox, yell, or you'll hear, stuff in the woods, and people will panic and be like, "What is that?" And those of us that live out in the woods, or have lived in the woods or spent time there, can say, "Oh man, calm down. It's just a bobcat."
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, it's just a fox. Foxes sound terrifying when they yell out.
Yeah.
But so you're saying whatever noises this thing was making, they just were something he couldn't identify.
Oh yeah.
And your thought was skinwalker?
That's my initial thought.
The interesting thing, all right, so now while I kind of lied, I said we weren't going to go into the history, and we are to an extent, but we have not had enough time, or we don't really have enough time to sit down and do like a super thorough complete presentation on the Dogman. That's why we discuss him. But we do have our handy-dandy little MacBook here to look up things on it. And, if we have more patrons, maybe one day we can quit our jobs and put more effort into stuff like that. But what I'm seeing here is this kind of, werewolves go back a long, 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 long time. Werewolves mythos has been around for quite a while. But when it comes to the Dogman, it looks like a lot of this Dogman mythos starts in Michigan. They call him the Michigan Dogman. Now, according to Wikipedia, in Michigan, folklore, and I quote, I'm going to be reading it pretty much exactly as it is, so this is their words, not mine. In Michigan folklore, the Michigan Dogman was allegedly witnessed in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan. The creature is described as being a 7-foot-tall, blue-eyed, or amber-eyed bipedal canine-like animal with the torso of a man and a fearsome howl that sounds like a human scream. According to the legends, the Michigan Dogman appears in a 10-year cycle that falls on years ending in 7. Very interesting. There's something there with the number 7. Sightings have been reported in several locations throughout Michigan, primarily in the northwestern quadrant of the Lower Peninsula. In 1987, the legend of the Michigan Dogman gained popularity when a disc jockey, Steve Cook, at WTCM-FM recorded a song about the creature and its reported sightings. So we'll go into the history and maybe a little bit about that song coming up here in a few minutes. But what's interesting is now, while I say that we haven't had time to do like research, and bear with me, I'm not sick, but I don't feel well. My girlfriend, for some reason, decided to turn the AC on in the middle of winter last night and crank it down close to 60, and I sleeping very little, so I wasn't prepared for this. So I didn't sleep.
Running so hot?
Huh?
What had her running so hot?
I don't know. Well, she's just getting over sick herself. So maybe that has something to do with it, but she turned that off. I didn't know that was going to happen, and I did not sleep good at all last night. My body hurts from shivering so much.
You woke up cold, didn't you?
Very cold. Like so cold, I couldn't bring myself to get up out of bed to go put on like clothes.
Yeah, oh, that's the worst.
It was the worst. So I don't feel that good today, so please bear with me. We've just been kind of putting off Weird Wednesday, and we just were like, no more. We can't have another Wednesday pass without some kind of Weird Wednesday podcast. But so while I haven't had time to do like super, super thorough research in terms of like tracing down where it started and the people that reported it, all of that stuff, which I might find here as we browse the web together. But I did get to spend a lot of time listening to reported sightings on YouTube. I've probably spent the last month listening to top 10 Dogmen sightings, terrifying Dogman sightings. And while some of them are pretty outlandish, some of them do seem like the people that wrote them feel as though they really did see this thing. And there are some very common traits with the Dogmen. One being that they all are reported, almost every report, that they're super muscular. Like bodybuilder physique.
Yeah,
like I hear bodybuilder physique, from a lot of different reported sightings, and that's a common thing. One guy was in Europe, actually, and had said that there was a village that was terrified of the Dogmen. And, when he brought it up in a bar, they basically told him, like, don't talk about that, and took him somewhere else. And basically, he went to the village that night, and nobody would come out after dark because of the Dogman. And he had his own encounter, and the whole village witnessed it. Jeez. They claim so. But like I said, these things are reported to be very similar to a werewolf, except for everything I've seen. And now you tell me if I'm wrong, because if you're an expert on this, we would love to have you. But from what we're finding, the Dogmen just exist. They don't morph. They don't. They don't bite you and you turn into a werewolf. One guy had a terrifying story of being in I guess it was an old rundown coroner's office, or it wasn't necessarily a funeral home. It's just kind of where they kept the bodies and such. What would you call that? What do they call that? I'm having a complete brain fart. A morgue. Thank you. I told you I don't feel good. A morgue. Don't know why that was so hard to say. But he was in a morgue, and he got chased down and got cut up pretty bad, got scratched, I think even bit a little bit by this creature. And when he went to the cops, of course, they thought he was crazy, but they did say that they couldn't explain some of the marks. They had said, oh, you got attacked by a wild dog. However, there were a couple of markings and bites that they said they can't explain. However, he didn't turn into a werewolf. So there is some difference there between, if you get bit by a werewolf, you'll turn into a werewolf and you're killed with silver and all of that. These just seem to be things that exist. Now, my question to you, JP, being you love to go down the conspiracy rabbit hole, do you think it's a possibility that being the physique of a human, but the attributes of a wolf, do you think there's a chance this is like a government experiment that escaped?
Well, it could have something to do with Plum Island. I mean, we've talked before about the pigmen of China. We've talked about possible weaponization of Sasquatch. So, I mean, that's why I was kind of curious how far the mythology goes back. To
the late 1800s, supposedly.
Yes, and maybe they just found some mythology and were like, hey, we can kind of use this as an inspiration for our...
Or if they're trying to hide something, they would just fabricate this entire story of it happening before we were doing much with DNA and cloning and splicing and all of that. Because we know that Russia was trying to make ape-human hybrid super soldiers. That's not a rumor. That's fact. That happened. I mean, granted, we're told they failed, but that happened. So, I mean, what's to say we didn't go, I see your ape men and I'll raise you a dog man.
Dude, that literally would have been the beginning of a real-life Planet of the Apes,
That'd be a cool premise for a movie. You've got like the Planet of the Apes, but on the other end, their enemy are the dogmen.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, a lot of reports state that this thing has just claws that would make a bear freak out and run away. Like most of their finger is just claw. And granted, this could all 130% be made up bullshit, but it sounds like it was made to be a weapon. It sounds like it took the physique and the physical masculinity of a person and combined that with the just brutality and instincts of a dog, and you've got a pretty badass weapon there.
Yeah, it definitely seems built of a carnivorous nature, and
a lot of times reports, like I did read one or listen to one, I should say. I listened to them on the way home because I have about a 30-45 minute drive to the house and work. But one of the ones that I listened to said that this guy's kid was young and he was taking food and walking up to a fence and saying he was feeding his new dog.
Yeah.
And his dad and mom just thought, oh, he's just being sweet. He's got an imaginary friend. And then one day the dad decides, hey, I need to go around behind the fence to clean up all that food because they were just playing along, saying, sure, you could take the scraps out there. And to his surprise, there was absolutely no scraps. Something had been eating them, to which, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, I mean, you dump food outside, it don't last long. There's raccoons, there's foxes, there's stray dogs. I mean, there's a lot of animals that would pick. But I guess he figured you'd see some sign that there's been food there. And I, as someone who, grew up in the South, and Mama at the end of dinner, she'd pack up a little bit of the leftovers, but any leftovers we weren't going to eat, you had to walk them to the woods and scrape them out. Mm-hmm. I do know sometimes that stuff stayed there longer than you would think.
Yeah.
But so he goes around the corner, and to his surprise, there's no sign that food's ever been there. And basically, he kind of catches a glimpse at some point of the creature, and it was a dogman. It was just like, and they said the fence was tall, so I mean, this thing had to be standing pretty tall. A lot of reports say anywhere from 7 to like 9 feet. I think 7 to 8 is kind of the average that I hear, but some have said up to 9 feet. But when you're scared, the adrenaline's going. If you were to have seen this, there's no telling what kind of way your mind would encourage the cowardly dog that shit and make it look bigger than it is, you know?
That's definitely a hard beast to keep it secrecy.
Oh,
just
yeah.
'cause it's so huge.
According to a core entry by Jeff Cox, long-term researcher and student of the Bigfoot phenomena. This guy pretty much studies Bigfoot, but he's here talking about dogmen. So, JP, you'll enjoy this.
Yeah.
It says that Bigfoot creatures, and again, I'm quoting, so none of these words are mine. These are all, these belong to Jeff Cox. You can find it. Just go to Quora and look up Dogmen, look up Jeff Cox, and you'll be able to find his complete work. But he says that Bigfoot creatures are rare and dogmen are even more rare. They're out there, though, spread across the USA, but you seldom hear about them. However, as time goes by and the idea that crazy creatures existing becomes more common, people are starting to come out and talk about their creature experiences, dogman included. While most Bigfoot encounters are benign, with the creature usually making a quick exit when they, run into humans, dogmen, they are a little bit more aggressive, because that's one thing that you're a big fan of the Sasquatch, big believer. And that's one thing that I think most common stories we can find is it definitely does seem like Sasquatch doesn't want to hurt anyone. A lot of times they just want to scare you out of their territory. I mean, we have very few.
Yeah, they're benevolent creatures.
Yeah, you have very few encounters of like aggressive Bigfoot. I'm sure that there are out there, but we don't have that many of them. And I'm sure everything can be pushed to a limit. But a lot of reports from yourself, from other people, seem to state that these things just want to be left alone. They don't want to attack you. They just want you to leave their territory and, let you be.
Well, there are Native American tales of the Sasquatch kidnapping women.
Is that right?
Yeah, and I don't know if,
Do you think, because they're reported to be extremely intelligent, do you think nowadays they just know modern weaponry more than they can handle, so they just kind of stay to themselves?
I don't know, man. I mean, maybe that was, some folklore the Native Americans kind of just cooked up to keep women from wandering off, the Sasquatch is going to get you.
Right, just like you tell, kids that Krampus will come get them if they don't behave on Christmas or whatever.
That's not to say that there wasn't an actual Sasquatch, but it's kind of like in Australia if you say, you better be careful or the dingo will eat your baby.
Well, that actually ended up being true.
I thought she was faking.
No. They thought she was faking. Look it up. Oh, no. Look that up. I saw something on that not long ago. Yes, they thought she killed or did something horrible to her kid and blamed it with the whole dingo ate my baby. But when you actually do your research, you'll find that they found out a while later that no, there were. I think they found a dingo with like in a dingo's den maybe. And forgive me for being incorrect on some of these things. It's been a while, but it's been within the last few months. But they found like articles of her kid's like clothing and signs. They pretty much confirmed that her kid was taken away and eaten by a dingo.
What is a dingo?
It's kind of like it's another canine. Let me look to see the actual definition. I don't like to misinform people, but let's see. Dingo, a definition. What is a dingo? A dingo is a wild or half domesticated dog with a sandy colored coat found in Australia. That is according to an online dictionary.
And it ate the baby.
Yes.
Jesus.
Dingo ate my baby. It's horrible. But getting back to dogmen. Dogmen, a lot. So again, going back to Jeff Cox, he says that almost every person who encounters a dogman states that the feeling they got was pure evil. Mm-hmm. They just almost always sense pure evil, and almost every encounter and this is quoting him, that I've heard of read, the creature attempted to get at and harm the human who saw them. And I'm not gonna lie, like pretty much everything that I've read. Or listened to, I keep saying read, that I listened to, was dogmen being aggressive.
Yeah.
Whereas I do listen to Sasquatch stories, and like we were just discussing, a lot of them aren't aggressive. You think, if people were telling tall tales, of course it'd be, I fought off this Sasquatch and he chased me in the woods. And a lot of them are just reported seeing the Sasquatch, which was very shy and escaped into the woods.
They just want to be left alone, dude.
Right. That's the way it seems. But dogmen don't seem to be that way. They seem to be very, very aggressive. And what's interesting, when we get to the end of this, you will hear, I think on one of the paranormal podcasts where we had guests and stuff, I think that I actually discussed an encounter that I had I promise you, I assure you, you can go back and listen to it, long before I had ever heard of dogmen.
Well, you were like a teenager.
I was a teenager, yes. I wasn't even old enough to drive, but I still remember it. And if you actually go back and listen, I think it's the first paranormal cast, or like real life, if you go to the paranormal playlist on our podcast, you'll find it's like the first one. I think we had Aaron as our guest.
Yeah.
We were telling our own stories before we started bringing guests in to tell their stories.
Yeah.
That was a really cool series, too. We had our buddy Matt Crowder. We had Aaron. We had Andrew. It was a good little... And we had Dan Ashdown.
Yeah.
It was a good little run.
You know, apparently Andrew's got some more stories. We may have to get him back in here. Cowboy Crowder as well.
I would love to hear him. I'm sure our listeners would too, but that's the thing. So I told my experience, and I'll recount it here at the end of the podcast, and we'll let you make your decision. But the thing is, I mean, this was a long time ago, and I can promise you I've never believed in vampires or werewolves. So this, I thought I would, but I did make one claim that I'm going to kind of connect the dots here in a bit. But anyway, something I said that I promise you I just now found, and I'm like, it almost gave me goosebumps because I'm like, that is exactly how I described it. So anyways, we'll talk about that in a bit. But so moving on with Dogmen, again, Jeff Cox says, example, a common story you hear about dogmen is like this. An experienced hunter is out enjoying a deer hunt or a coyote hunt. He's in a stand and has a view of hundreds of yards of clear cut with power lines. The sun is just coming up when several hundred yards away, he sees what looks like a huge coyote on all fours walking along the tree line. In many cases where the dogman is spotted like this, the hunter has no idea what they're seeing. They simply think it's a huge coyote that's coming toward them. They'll be watching the coyote head in their direction, waiting to see, if it moves into a kill zone, and suddenly the coyote stops, freezes for a few seconds, and then stands up straight like a man. He goes on to say, I've read several accounts where that all started like this. In almost every encounter, once the creature stands up on its hind legs, it sniffs in the air in every direction for a bit, then always seems to stop and turn to look directly at the hidden hunter several hundred yards away. Sometimes it'll start walking towards them, then veer off into the bush. But it seems to like be able to really use that scent on another level. A lot of people get the heck out of there when that happens. But see, now that's the thing I do know that as time marches on, it gets easier and easier to fake these stories. I mean, someone like me, I've spent the last week or two listening to, top 15 dogmen encounters, top 12 scariest encounters with dogmen. I mean, now that I know all the common features of a dogman as far as what people say they experienced, I could probably make up a believable, similar sounding experience. However, I do believe there are some honest people out there. I think that, we've mentioned before with paranormal, a lot of times you and I both, maybe our numbers are a little different, but we're similar. I think that 90% are bullshit. I think that a lot of times people just make up shit, or they take something the wrong way, or their imagination makes them see something a little bit differently. But I do think there are instances where things happen that just can't be explained. I mean, we definitely haven't uncovered everything the world has to offer. So
yeah, and I think there's a plethora, dude. There's so many accounts that are just never reported because people don't want to sound crazy.
Right, absolutely.
You know what I mean? The ones I really look out for are like these like YouTubers that want to get famous because of paranormal stuff. They're the ones I discredit the most.
Right. We've talked about that before when watching like Nuke's Top 5. You said that a lot of times if they find something paranormal and it's a paranormal investigation channel, more times than not, you just dismiss it automatically because you're like, well, this is how your bread and butter. Of course you're going to experience something. But when it's like filming your child crawling across the floor just as a parent does, and all of a sudden something freaky happens. Yeah. That's kind of what you put more stock in.
Oh, yeah.
And so would you want to go out hunting for the dogman? Because I've taken you out doing some target shooting, and we're out there. That's not, I pointed to the woods and showed you. I was down in there when I had that weird thing following me.
I would
all
like
those
to
years
track
ago.
One. Yeah. We could do that.
We could go down there and just see what we find. I got a couple tree stands down there. I mean, we'd probably die if we do conjure it up, but, hey. Here's something interesting. So let's see. The creature stood up. It's an account. He says, but one account I read stated that the creature marched towards the hunter. Once it got a couple hundred yards away, he shot it. He clearly saw the impact and was sure he made a clean kill shot. However, after dropping down to all fours for a moment, the creature stood back up on its hind legs and resumed walking toward the man. The man shot 2 more times in panic but missed both shots. He then jumped out of his tree stand, ran the 50 feet to his ATV, and quickly exited the area. He was hunting on his family's property and went straight home. The next morning, when he woke up, the dogman was standing in the field behind the hunter's house, statue still, just staring.
Oh, my God.
at the house. In the days that came, or in the days to come, the man came to believe that it was stalking him. He saw huge dog tracks next to his home, and the tracks even went around his back porch. One day he came home after spending a couple of days away and found that someone had kicked in his front door, walked straight to his bedroom, found the hunting jacket the man always wore, and then left it in the bed with a dog print on it.
Dude, I would have faced that dog, man, and one of us would have left and one of us not.
And according to Jeff, more happened to this man, but that's just an example of the type of evil and aggressive behavior that people experience with a dogman.
So don't piss off the dog, man.
No.
That's the moral of the story.
Pretty much, man, which makes me rethink this whole let's go hunting for them. Especially if they take their bullet sponges. Now, my buddy does have my buddy let me use his 338 or 388. It's a caliber that I'm not that familiar with. And I do a lot of shooting, but to be honest, I've just never really messed with this. Like 270, 30, 30-06. These are all kind of calibers I'm familiar with. But this guy had I guess it was a 338. Let me check. I want to make sure I say it right. Or was it a 388? I think it was a 338. But anyways, it was a very, very powerful round. Big old round. Good kick. And maybe what we'll do, because I have a 270, but perhaps maybe we'll borrow his since it's got a little more oomph behind it. And we'll take that down there to be safe.
Oh, you're going to bring the Python, too.
It's not a Python. It's a Smith & Wesson Combat 66. But it is basically the competition to the Python back in the day.
You're going to bring that, and you're going to put it up against this noggin.
Well, I got a little holster that I can keep it, on my chest type deal, So I'll bring that if it'll make you feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
So you just want the big guns. Now, what's interesting, though, as I go through Quora and I'm looking at people that are commenting, I'm seeing Cassandra Delos, which is an animal lover, posted on February the 26th, so this was only a few days ago. Hello, Dogman is the same as a werewolf, but just another name, especially considering there could be female ones. It's not right to call them Dogman. I'm afraid the rumors will stop on these creatures. I have witnessed a male one and felt no fear. Our family dog at the same time was barking at it. I've actually never seen one of these creatures, but I thought she just said she experienced. Now, we're going to move on from Cassandra. But yeah, now she's trying to say they're the same thing. But I mean, if you don't know much about it, it doesn't sound like the same thing. It seems like there's something different. I mean, someone turning into a werewolf is not something I can really believe in. But now something that exists already. I mean, I'm not. Here's interesting. You want to see a little photo that says, "Is this a dog man?"
Yeah.
You want to see it? I mean, this is probably the most realistic depiction. You always see pictures of, something evil, but check this out. Feast your eyes on that. And of course, I'll have the picture. You might already be looking at it in the video. That's actually, and I'm sure that's fake, but that definitely looks like a real depiction of like a dog man.
That's haunting.
It is. I mean, just imagine seeing that coming across a field. And again, I don't think that that's legit, but who knows? Maybe it is. Let's see. I'm looking for other pictures here. I don't know, man. Holy crap! If that is a dog man, it's a big. Huh. It's interesting, man. And who's not to say they're not just seeing giant wolves? And I don't think that giant wolves typically stand up on their hind legs, but maybe it's just some kind of evolution that's happening before our eyes. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, and I doubt that that's it. But it could definitely be something not so mythological and something a lot more believable, because wolves do get huge.
Yeah. Some people are going to, have mistaken identities, but I don't know, man.
This is haunting, though I'm 100% sure it's fake. That is probably close to what I have a lot of people, like what I've listened to, say that it looks like more of because the picture I showed you a minute ago it looked really just like a dog walking on all fours. That almost seemed more like a skinwalker. The dog walking on all fours, whereas this kind of looks more like the Dogmen, because that last one really didn't have many human-like features. It just was a dog walking on 2 feet.
Yeah, that could be legit right there, man.
I don't think it is. I think it's too photogenic. It's too perfect. You know what I mean? But this one granted, I'm sure it's fake, but this one looks like it's got skeleton hands, so I'm sure that's fake. But still, very interesting depiction of a dog man. You want to see something that I know is fake, but it's going to freak you out? Imagine you open your basement doors.
Oh, my God,
that's what you see. Oh, boy.
I've woke up to see my cats like that sometimes.
Oh, man, I wake up every day to my girlfriend's cats begging to be fed. That's pretty much what it sounds like. He's just more like, because he's fat and, making sound and passing air is
I'm
difficult.
I'm going to take that fat tabby home with me one day.
I wish you would. Anyways, back to the Dogman. But so one thing that is interesting about this is that, a lot of Sasquatch videos have some they're very convincing. A lot of people do have convincing Sasquatch videos. I hadn't seen many videos with Dogmen that actually looked legit.
Yeah.
A lot of them just kind of looked fake as hell.
Well, man, I'd love to know if we have any listeners that have experiences or footage or just opinions on what these Dogmen are up to. Do they exist? Have you encountered them?
We're always here to listen to your opinion. We're not here to convince you of anything, to tell you they do or they don't exist. We just are getting a conversation started, and we'd love to see it continue in the comments section.
But, dude, you agree with me. We've got some of the most provocative, intelligent, worldly listeners, I believe, on social media.
Indeed.
And a lot of times they're educating us more so than we are them.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Sometimes you're like, man, this person should have the podcast, not us.
And it's great. I love it.
So, yeah, let us know what you know about Dogmen. I find this to be really, really interesting, and we can definitely do a part 2 on this when we get more time to research it. But and that's one of the big questions. What do you think? I mean, like a lot of things that I found are that werewolves and Dogmen are not the same thing. However, some people, such as that lady who was contradicting herself, say that they are the exact same thing. So I'd love to hear what you think. Now let's get to my experience, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Yes.
So just to kind of go back over this, because I did explain it once. For those maybe new listeners, I've hunted most of my life, and I was probably 14, 15, not old enough to drive, and I was sitting out in the woods, and my father would usually put me down on the bottom of the property, and he would go up to the top, be plenty far away, and we'd basically stay there until it got dark. Once the sun started going down, we'd get up, come to the road, Dad would pick me up. Well, I remember I was sitting there, and I'm one of those people, I try to tough it out as much as I can, such as being sick right now and being here. But when my feet get cold, that's when I'm pretty much ready to call it quits.
Yes.
I can deal with cold hands, cold legs. When my feet start freezing, that's I no thank you. So it had been a long day. It was unproductive. We weren't seeing anything. It was close to dark. We were probably 30 minutes from the sun going down. So I just decided, what, to hell with this. I'm done for the day. So I stood up. And what's interesting is none of this really started, I don't think, till I stood up. But I stood up and I started walking out the woods. And now the thing that I see similar, according to this Jeff Cox fellow and what I've said, is I heard a howl. And it was not a dog howl. This was not a coyote howl. I've been coyote hunting. I know what they sound like. This was very bizarre. And if you go back and listen to the original, I say that it almost sounded like a wolf howl with like a human, like baritone or a human voice under it. And that's not what that's just what it sounded like. I remember instantly thinking that. I think I'm hunting. I'm used to, as it gets dark, you start hearing coyote yips and foxes yell and bobcats and things like that. So, it's not any, this instantly freaked me out. It was a little ways off. It wasn't right up on me, but it just, like I said, it had this like howl, and then it almost just this human something quality to it. And it wasn't warped. A lot of people say skinwalkers, when they make their screeches, they're kind of warped and don't sound right. This just sounded like someone made a recording of like a really deep, loud, so loud wolf howl, and then put a human man's voice under it. So I hear that, and of course I'm like, what the so I start walking faster, and about every couple of minutes, it felt like, it probably was realistically every minute, but every minute felt like an hour. I was freaking out, It would howl, and it was getting closer. That is no mistaking. This thing is getting closer. And I remember I had a little radio for emergencies, and I radioed my dad, which was a no-no. He's hunting. Probably by radioing him, I've just scared off anything that thought about it. Yeah. So I hit the radio, and I was like, do you hear this thing howling? And it's hundreds of acres up separating us here, And he's like, no, I don't hear anything. What are you talking about? And I tell him, I'm like, something's following me and it's howling. He goes, no, it's not. I'm like, yes, I promise you it is. My dad has been one of those most of my life, never believes much of anything I tell him. Yeah. So, he's just like, because I guess he's used to my mom kind of always takes things to the nth power. So he's just been conditioned to doubt anybody when they have some wild claim. But so, I'm like, no, I'm telling you, something's following me. He said, well, Justin, don't forget you have a gun. And I mean, I had a Mossberg 835 with 3.5-inch buckshot. Don't know if you're familiar with those, but a lot of people won't even shoot that shotgun. I mean, your average hunter will, but I have found some people on the YouTubes who refuse to shoot it because it's just so much of a punch to the shoulder.
Yeah.
So I mean, it packs a punch. So I had that, and I think it held 3 or 4 shells. So I'm walking, and in my mind, I was thinking, okay, there's this barn, and we have these 2 hunting dogs that my pop basically lets them run most of the day. Then he'll put them on leashes and let them stay out, because he had these really long leashes, like ropes he let them on, and they basically would hang out around the barn during the day to get away from the pen. And I think maybe it was even that it was 2 females in heat. I can't remember, but he kept them there, and he did that a lot. So my thought was, okay, if I can get to the tobacco barn, those 2 dogs will be there. They'll protect me.
Yeah.
Got to the tobacco barn, and those dogs were gone. And they were there earlier in the day. I mean, we were having lunch right there at them. They were there, and I just thought, they're there. In my mind, of course, my teenage mind, oh my God, whatever this is eating the dogs. Yeah. All it was my pop had put them back in the pen. But at the time, that was my saving grace. I'm going to get to these dogs. They have senses. They'll help protect me. And they were gone. But so finally, I kind of, wussied out. I told my dad, I was like, can you come get me, or I'm going to start walking towards your truck. And it was the whole time while all this is happening, the howls are getting closer. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking like, seriously, man, I'm not the best judge of distance, but I'd say at one point I heard it this close. It's probably like 50 feet in some brush, like in the woods. Like it sounded like it was about to pounce out of the woods and get me. So I had my gun pointed at where I heard it, and I told him that. And of course, he's like, Jesus Christ, man. All right, fine, whatever. I'll be there in a few minutes. So I kind of put my back against the barn and just aimed in the direction of the sound, and I heard it. And what's freaky is it's like it knew I had a gun or something, and it was moving around me. Mm-hmm. So like I heard it howl in front of me, thinking, oh shit, this is where I die. And then all of a sudden it's out to the left. So then I'm like, son of a bitch. And then a few seconds later, a few minutes, you hear it howl. It was really coming closer, going further. Like it's kind of like it was just playing with me. It knew I had something that could hurt it, but it was looking for its opening maybe. I don't know, man. And keep in mind, if you're not familiar with this channel, neither one of us are super big believers in the paranormal. We're open to it, but we're not people that put a lot of stock into it. So my dad finally rolls up, and, he's kind of irritated because he wanted to spend the last few minutes in the stand. But when I get in the truck, he heard it himself. And he was like, okay, I don't know what that is. All right, let's go. And then, of course, now he looks back and he's like, oh, it probably was a coyote or whatever. Maybe even a rabid coyote. And I'm like, no, because I could see the fear in your face when you heard it. You knew somebody who's been in the woods your whole life. And he's been on that farm since he was a child. He used to pull tobacco on that farm. That shit scared you. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying you went home and got under your bed and changed religion and freaked out, but it definitely had you going, nope. You noped right the hell out of there. Yeah. But the thing that I see where Jeff says, where does he say it? The thing about the voice and the howl together is what really kind of gave me goosebumps, because that's exactly what I said months ago. It might even be a year ago on the podcast, close to it. Let's see, where does he say that? It's usually reported to have hands similar to us, but shorter as their hind legs. Blah, 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 blah. They're out there, though, spread across the USA. I thought he said somewhere, I can't find it. But anyways, I find the whole stalking thing to be a bit creepy.
Yeah.
I find the fact that this thing knew that this guy shot at it and kind of held that grudge and tracked him to his house. I mean, you got to think, if they're dog-human hybrids, they've definitely probably got a wicked sense of smell.
Yeah.
And the intelligence to hold a grudge.
It's a good thing you didn't shoot at that one. It would have followed you home.
Yeah, but that would have been, we live probably 20 minutes away, 15. You've been from my house to there. Like 15 minutes away. So it's been a long little ride, whereas this guy said that they said in that story the house was, I think, on the property, or not far from it. But I don't know. That makes it, I would say if they exist, if they're not just completely blown out of proportion, like a coyote and a large coyote in someone's imagination just ran too wild. I would say it definitely sounds like some government experiment that got out.
Yeah, could be, man.
And they're mating maybe and spreading.
I don't know, dude.
Oh, man. So you want to go hunting the Dogman? Maybe that could be a Patreon exclusive video.
No, we'll go.
Would you actually go, though?
Yes.
There is a graveyard out there we could check out while we're there.
As long as it ain't my grave.
Yeah, I think that we should do that. So we'll let you know when, but let us know your thoughts on the Dogman. Is this legit? Is it a werewolf? Is it nothing? Are people stupid and making it up? Is it an experiment? Is it evolution? Is it from outer space? I mean, what in the world is going on with the Dogman? Now, really, this one probably fascinates me more than any other of the supernatural beings we've done in the woods, like the skinwalkers and the wendigos, which sound far more mythological. This sounds like this could actually be maybe something to it, much like the Sasquatch.
Yeah.
And I think we'll probably have another discussion on Sasquatch again at some point.
Yeah, we will.
That's JP's. We didn't go to the Sasquatch convention, did we?
Oh, it hasn't happened yet.
When is it?
It's in May, I think.
Are we going to it? You promised me we were. I'm
planning on trying to camp out for the. It's like a whole weekend, like camp out the Friday night, and then
you camp out in the woods and hope the Sasquatch comes and.
Yeah, so I'm all about that, dude.
As shy as they are, what makes them think with a ton of people camping out, Sasquatch is going to reveal itself?
Well, it's just that's I'll give you the skinny on that later, but
oh boy,
no, I'm getting the ticket, and yeah, I'm very excited.
Who do you think would win between the rake and a Dogman?
I don't know.
Do you know what a rake is?
I know if you step on it, it's going to break your nose.
It can, but it's also very reliable too. But no, there's a cryptid known as the rake. Look it up. Maybe we'll do a video on that one day.
Yeah, that'd be all right.
That one I know a little bit more about because I've done some research. But yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Again, if you like what you heard, maybe you made it this far. Either you're already subscribed or maybe you enjoy what you heard. So consider hitting that subscribe button. Also, consider hitting the little bell notification so it will let you know when we make new podcasts. And every Wednesday, there's something paranormal or conspiracy related. That's why we call it Weird Wednesday. On Mondays, we discuss The Walking Dead episode by episode. So we will see you on Patreon tomorrow for another Patreon exclusive cast. And if we don't see you there, well, then we'll see you on Monday. Don't forget patreon.com/thepodcastingdead. For as little as $1 a month, you get like 8 extra podcasts a month.
Yeah.
Those are much more personal and just kind of us.
The best ones.
They're my favorite. They go anywhere from paranormal to, I mean, I don't want to say politics in a broad sense. We definitely don't get into our political opinions, but we may talk politics if it has some relevance to conspiracies or something else. We also discuss personal lives, things like that. So you'll have those, and I think we're going to start doing for $5 and up patrons. We're going to start doing like a Thirsty Thursday cast where we get a little tipsy and chill with the listeners live. So lots of fun stuff on the way. In the meantime, I think I'm going to go take a nap.
Yes.
Don't tell my boss.
You're bad.
Which I don't have a boss here, but still. Don't tell anyone. I don't need them to use it against me.
I'll tell Julius.
Take a lunch break then, damn it. But I'm going to take a nap. JP's got some things to do. We hope everyone has a wonderful Wednesday. We'll catch you soon. I'm Justin.
I'm JP.
And we're the Podcasting Dead.